Here's a question most people never think to ask until it's too late. How much money does the average person actually retire with? Not the number in the glossy brochure, not the projection your HR department showed you during orientation. The real number, the one that shows up in federal data after decades of real working life. When most people imagine retirement, they picture something earned. A modest house paid off, a little travel, dinners out without checking the bill twice. Maybe not wealthy, but comfortable, secure, finished. That image is one of the most expensive illusions in modern financial life, because the gap between what people imagine retirement looks like and what it actually looks like is not a small gap. It's a canyon, and most people don't see it until they're already standing at the edge.
Today, I'm going to show you exactly what that canyon looks like. The real numbers, the real reasons, and the real difference between the people who cross it safely and the people who fall in. Some of what follows will be uncomfortable, but discomfort that changes behavior is worth far more than comfort that doesn't. Let's start with the number nobody puts in their advertisements. The Federal Reserve surveys American household finances every 3 years in what's called the Survey of Consumer Finances. It's the most rigorous, comprehensive look at actual household wealth that exists, not projections, not intentions, actual accumulated balances. Here's what it shows. For households where the head is between 55 and 64, people in their final working decade, the median retirement savings sits at approximately $134,000. Half of all households approaching retirement have less than that. Many have dramatically less. For households already in retirement, ages 65 to 74, the median drops further to around $88,400. This is not a rounding error. This is not a bad year in the market. This is the typical outcome of a typical working life in America right now. And here is where the numbers get deceptive, in a way most people miss entirely. The average, or mean, retirement savings looks much higher, around $400,000. That sounds almost reassuring until you understand why the gap exists. A small number of households have accumulated enormous wealth. Their balances pull the average up dramatically, while the majority sit far below it. When the mean is $400,000 and the median is $88,000, the math is telling you something specific. Most people have very little, a few people have an enormous amount, and the average hides which group you're likely in. Now, let's translate that median number into what daily life actually costs. Someone retiring with $88,400 using the 4% withdrawal rule, the standard benchmark for sustainable retirement income, can pull roughly $3,536 per year from their savings. That's $295 per month from a lifetime of accumulated work. Add the average Social Security benefit of approximately $1,900 monthly, total retirement income around $2,195 per month. That is $26,340 annually to cover housing, food, healthcare, transportation, medications, and every other expense that doesn't stop arriving just because a paycheck did. The federal poverty line for a single person sits near $15,000 annually, so the median retiree clears it, technically. But clearing the poverty line and living with financial security are not the same thing. They are not even close to the same thing. Here is what makes this data more alarming than the headline number suggests. The people retiring today with these balances had advantages that are quietly disappearing for everyone behind them. Many spent careers during the era of defined benefit pensions, guaranteed monthly income for life funded entirely by employers. Many bought homes when housing prices were still tethered to income in a recognizable way. Many experienced decades of stable employment with a single company. Many entered the workforce before student debt had become the financial anchor it is today. The generation retiring right now had significant structural tailwinds. The generation behind them is facing structural headwinds instead, which means the $88,400 median isn't the floor of this problem. For younger workers, it could be the ceiling if nothing changes. So where exactly does the money go wrong? Because this is not a mystery. The failure points are specific, documented, and consistent across millions of households. Understanding them is the first step toward not repeating them.
The first failure point is the one that costs the most while feeling the least urgent: starting late. Compound growth rewards time more than it rewards amount, not slightly more, enormously more. Someone who invests $300 monthly beginning at age 25 will accumulate far more than someone investing $600 monthly starting at 45. The early starter has 40 years of compounding working in their favor. The late starter is fighting math that doesn't negotiate. Here's the version that stops most people cold. Someone who saved just $200 monthly from age 22 to age 30 and then never contributed again would have more money at 65 than someone who saved $200 monthly from age 40 all the way to 65. 8 years of early investing outperforms 25 years of late investing. The compounding curve doesn't care about effort or intention. It only responds to time.
The second failure point happens to people who started well and then stopped. Life arrives in the middle of a career with unusual force: children, mortgages, car payments. The retirement contribution becomes temporarily paused when expenses mount. Temporarily tends to last longer than anyone intends. By the time contributions resume, a decade of compound growth has been permanently foregone. The catching up required feels discouraging enough that many people never fully close the gap. The third failure point is one of the most quietly destructive behaviors in retirement economics: cashing out retirement accounts when changing jobs. Roughly 40% of workers do this. It feels like accessing money that's yours. The immediate cash feels real. The long-term cost remains completely invisible. A 28-year-old who cashes out a $15,000 401k doesn't lose $15,000. After the 10% early withdrawal penalty and income taxes, they receive maybe $10,000 in hand. And they lose what that $15,000 would have become over 37 years of growth, potentially over $250,000 at retirement. The fourth failure point is an assumption so common it functions as a cultural default: the belief that catching up later will be possible. It almost never is, not at the scale required. The same $500,000 retirement goal requires $285 monthly starting at 25. It requires $1,200 monthly starting at 45. Most households cannot quadruple their savings rate in their late 40s. Their expenses have solidified, their obligations have compounded in the opposite direction of their savings. The fifth failure point affects even the people who save consistently and never touch the money: investing it wrong. Many workers contribute to their 401k and leave the money sitting in default money market funds, earning 2 to 3% annually. Someone investing $400 monthly for 35 years at 3% accumulates approximately $295,000. The same person, same contributions, same discipline, invested at 8% in diversified index funds accumulates approximately $870,000. Both people saved identically for 3.5 decades. One retires with nearly triple the wealth because of a single decision about where the money sat. Now let's look at what separates the people who retire comfortably from the people who retire with $88,400. Because the gap is not primarily about income, the data is clear on this. It's about specific behaviors maintained or abandoned across decades. The first differentiator is automation. People who retire comfortably set up automatic contributions early, before their lifestyle had a chance to absorb that money. The transfer happened before they ever saw the paycheck. Their spending adapted around what remained. People who retire with $88,400 overwhelmingly relied on manual saving. They intended to transfer money when they could. Somehow, they could never quite afford it. The intention never converted into action because consistent action required consistent decisions. And consistent decisions are exactly what busy lives erode. The second differentiator is savings rate. Comfortable retirees consistently saved 15 to 20% of income throughout their careers. Those retiring with $88,400 typically saved 5% or less. The difference between 5% and 15% in any single paycheck feels manageable, even trivial. Over 30 years, it is the difference between $200,000 and $600,000. Same income, different priority. Compounding does the rest. The third differentiator is behavior during market downturns. Comfortable retirees held their positions when markets fell. They understood volatility as the price of long-term growth. Those retiring with $88,400 frequently sold during crashes, locking in losses precisely when recovery was about to begin. Emotional discipline over decades is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The fourth differentiator is debt entering retirement. Comfortable retirees arrive at 65 with little or no debt. Those retiring with $88,400 often carry car payments, credit card balances, and home equity loans into retirement, consuming fixed income that should be funding living expenses, not servicing past decisions. The fifth differentiator is healthcare planning, and this one surprises almost everyone. A couple retiring today should expect to spend approximately $315,000 on healthcare throughout retirement. For someone with $88,400 in total savings, healthcare costs alone could consume the entire balance within a decade. Comfortable retirees funded health savings accounts during working years. They planned for this number. Most people discover it after it's too late to prepare for it. Let me show you what the median retirement actually looks like from the inside. Julia retired at 66 with $94,000 in savings and a Social Security benefit of $1,847 monthly. Her husband had passed away years earlier. She was navigating retirement alone. Her monthly income totals $2,147. Her monthly expenses total $2,147. There is no margin. There is no discretionary spending. Every dollar is allocated before it arrives. Her rent on a small apartment is $875. Medicare and supplemental coverage runs $285. Groceries are $180. Utilities and phone are $210. Her car payment is $125. Medications not fully covered by insurance run $187. Everything else, repairs, clothing, gifts, any unexpected expense, must fit into $185. Last winter, her car needed $1,100 in repairs. She skipped a month of medication to cover it. When her refrigerator failed, she charged the replacement to a credit card she is still paying off. Julia is not impoverished by official definition. She is living in financial precarity, where every unexpected expense is a crisis, and no crisis has an adequate response. This is not a cautionary tale about one person's unusual misfortune. This is the median experience. Here is the part of this story that should be hardest to sit with. An additional $200 monthly in savings from age 30 to 65 would have given Julia $350,000 instead of $94,000. That additional $256,000 would have more than doubled her monthly income. The daily cost of that difference was roughly $6.50. She didn't make a catastrophic decision. She made the same small daily decisions that most people make. And those decisions compounded across decades into an outcome she couldn't have fully imagined when she was 35 or 45 or even 55. Now, consider two workers earning identical incomes. Both make $55,000 annually. Both receive a 3% employer match. One contributes 5%, one contributes 15%. That is the only difference. After 35 years at 8% returns, the 5% saver has approximately $470,000. The 15% saver has approximately $1,080,000. Same salary, same employer, same years worked, different behavior. The gap between them is $610,000, produced entirely by one daily choice made differently. That 10% difference in savings rate equals approximately $460 per month, or roughly $15 per day. The distance between a precarious retirement and a comfortable one, measured in daily dollars, is roughly the cost of a modest lunch. If you're watching this and recognizing your own trajectory in these numbers, here is what the math tells you about where you stand. If you're in your 20s or early 30s, you hold the most valuable asset in retirement planning: time. Start immediately. Automate contributions, capture every dollar of employer match, increase your rate by 1% annually until you reach 15%. Invest in low-cost index funds and leave them alone.
If you're in your late 30s or 40s with some savings but behind schedule, the window is still open, but the math requires more urgency. Increase your savings rate aggressively. Eliminate spending that doesn't add meaningful value. Plan to delay retirement if possible. Every additional working year both adds savings and removes a year retirement must fund. If you're in your 50s with little saved, the choices become harder, but they are not gone. Saving 20 to 25% may be necessary. Working into your late 60s becomes likely. Delaying Social Security until 70 increases your monthly benefit by roughly 8% per year beyond full retirement age. Even someone starting from zero at 50 who saves $500 monthly can accumulate approximately $127,000 by 65. That's 40% above the current median. Regardless of where you are in that spectrum, one principle applies without exception. Action today beats optimal action tomorrow. The median retiree didn't reach $88,400 through terrible decisions. They reached it through decisions they kept delaying until the delay became the decision.
Learning that most people retire with $88,400 can produce two completely opposite responses: motivation to change behavior immediately, or fatalism. If most people fail, maybe failure is simply what happens. The fatalistic response is understandable. It is also incorrect. The median outcome is produced by median behavior. Different behavior produces different outcomes. The top quartile of retirement savers has accumulated over $500,000. The top decile exceeds $1 million. These are not overwhelmingly high-income households. They are households with different financial behaviors maintained across the same decades every other household had access to. The gap between $88,400 and $500,000 was not created by income. It was created by consistency, by priority, by small, daily decisions made differently thousands of times across decades. All three remain available. The only question is whether you use them. Every morning contains a small retirement decision, invisible as such. The coffee purchased instead of made and invested. The savings rate reduced to absorb a lifestyle upgrade. The investment left in cash because moving it felt complicated. None of these feel like retirement decisions in the moment. Accumulated across 30 years, they are almost the only retirement decisions that matter. The median retiree didn't choose $88,400. They chose a pattern of daily behaviors that produced $88,400. Each individual choice seemed reasonable in isolation. The cumulative result was not. You are not choosing a retirement number today. You are choosing a pattern of daily behaviors. The number arrives later as a consequence. $88,400 is the cost of default behavior across a working life. It does not have to be your number. What you do tomorrow and every day after determines which statistic you become.